What is up, cinephiles? Welcome back to Screen Kings. Today's video we'll be talking about the animated coming-of-age film Apollo 10.5: A Space-Age Childhood, now streaming on Netflix. Now, I'm a bit sad that this one is not getting much promotion because I think this is such a great and one-of-a-kind film, especially if you are a fan of Richard Linklater. This is definitely a must-see. He is the writer-director of the romantic drama films Before Trilogy and the Oscar-nominated film Boyhood, to name some. So in this story, this one is set in Houston, Texas in 1969, where the whole world is watching in anticipation for the first moon landing mission. The story is told in the perspective of a young kid named Stanley, and in this version, he is basically recruited by NASA to be the beta test. So he will go to the moon first himself before the whole Apollo 11 crew mission will go there. Hence the title of the movie Apollo 10.5. Now, I don't need to answer if that is a true account because this movie is a mix of imagination and reality. But regardless, I can tell that this is a very personal story for Richard Linklater because upon my research, he also had the same childhood wherein he lived in Houston, Texas, in the suburbs, and almost everyone in that area are working for the NASA headquarters because it's within the vicinity. So throughout the film, you can feel the spirit and the influence of the Space Force program. So I did not immediately decide to watch this video because I thought I will be alienated because I don't live in the States, not in the suburbs. I live in a province and we don't have a Space Force program here in the country. So I'm not sure if this is going to be something resonating for me, but Richard Linklater's humanist sensibilities knows how to make it universal. Let's say the nostalgia here is something universal, like you haven't been in that specific milieu or in that particular era, but it felt like watching the movie that I already lived through that experience. That's how I felt about this movie, that it just grabbed me right away. And even though there are some pop cultural touchstones here, like brands, cereals, or some silly games that I'm not familiar or I'm just remotely familiar, but I am a millennial and I am within that transition of analog to digital, so I can definitely relate on the childhood here, playing with your friends in front of your house into the vacant streets, playing kickball, doing prank calls. I also remember playing Ouija board, just like what the film portrayed. So I can relate onto that aspect. Now, I'm not sure for the Gen Zs that are going to be watching this because, their lifestyle growing up is facing smartphones, playing with their friends virtually. But yes, this movie definitely spoke to my analog phase in the childhood and also into the family dynamic that is presented here. Young Stanley has 6 siblings, and I was able to relate to their relationships and also to the way that his parents are trying their best to save, whether it comes to the gasoline or recycling or transforming food into different dishes. My mom also does that. And I can see that this movie is just made with such care and thought because those little details, the ones that we should appreciate, those little details in life, Richard Linklater nails that. So this one feels like a fully fleshed story, like it's like a slice of life approach. And that happens for the first half of the film because it's building backstory for young Stanley here. And one can say that it might be too indulgent, like the story doesn't really go anywhere. But it didn't matter because I was entertained. And even the style of the narration here, this one is narrated by Jack Black, an adult Stanley. His narration here is a bit of nonchalant, almost conversational, chatty type. So since most of the viewers here are going to be on the younger generation, I think it works as if your grandfather or your father is passing these stories to you. So I think that's something that really worked for the movie, and sometimes it felt like the movie is a narrative docudrama rather than a traditional narrative of a film, and that's okay because I was entertained, like what I said. And for the animation, it is a rotoscope animation. That is the similar technique that Richard Linklater used for his movie As Connor Darkly, where they shoot the video first. So we have this live action video and the animators basically trace over that live action video to enhance the color and the texture to give it a hyper realist and somehow a fancy effect. So I think that style really works in meshing the reality and the imagination aspect of the movies. I find that style of 2D slash 3D-ish style of animation very gorgeous and pleasing to the eye. And just on an overall sense, it really suits how this movie is able to bring out that childlike sense of wonder, because it's about that phase of a child where he starts imagining things, and it's something that's just pure, you know, capturing that chapter of our lives where it's just filled with innocence and you have this wish fulfillment happening. And I was able to relate on that part because growing up, I think it happened for me when I first saw the X-Men films. I wanted so bad to have these powers, and I even had this whole story mapped out in my head. Like, Professor Xavier showed up in our house one day and he took me under his wing and took me to Xavier's school. I even had this vivid dream of going to Narnia ever since I watched that movie. I opened my cabinet every night. So that aspect where you can say that part of your childhood is part make-believe, part reality. I love how this movie sends a message that both of those moments are equally as important to you because it shaped who you are. Well, eventually, as you grow old, you become more of a realist. You start to shed that imaginative side of you. But I think this movie is able to bring out that sense of me that I thought I already lost as a kid. So I found this movie really profound in a silent and understated way. And what I like about this film is it did not come across to me as some sort of a vanity project, even though it's basically a retelling of his childhood, because you can feel that Richard Linklater is not showing the past just for the sake of showing the past, but there's some sort of profoundness in it, in when you're trying to reassess your present, you know, realigning your perspective. So there's a lot of insights to be gained in this film. So I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5 stars. It did not take me to an emotional high, but the amount of nostalgia that I get here is just enough for me to recommend it. It's just a sweet and affecting film, very thought-provoking, and maybe you will get different range of insights from this film. So yeah, that's my review for Apollo 10.5. How about you guys? I hope you've seen this movie because this is something special. I am particularly excited for Richard Linklater's project, Merrily We Go Along, which will be shot over the course of 20 years, topping his previous efforts from Boyhood. So that's crazy because by the time that movie comes out, I will be already on my 40s. So I hope Richard Linklater is able to finish that. But how about you guys? Let me know what you think in the comment sections down below. Also, if you enjoyed watching this video, hit that like and subscribe to me for weekly reviews of movies and TV shows. Thank you so much guys for watching. Until then, I'll see you all on the next one.